Special Agent, can you tell the jury what role you're playing here today and during this trial?
One of the officers in charge of this case.
Okay, and what does that mean?
It means that I've been assigned with Lieutenant Willis to usher this investigation through the prosecution.
Okay. This Lieutenant Willis?
Yes.
Okay. He's normally sitting right here. He's also an officer in charge?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what your occupation is?
Yes, I'm a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It's commonly referred to as just ATF.
And what does the ATF do?
The ATF enforces the nation's firearms, arson, and explosive laws. Obviously, we primarily focus on the firearms laws.
And so you're employed by the state or the federal government?
The federal government.
Okay. As part of that, well, I'm sorry, let me get to this. A little bit about your experience and background that brings you here to testify. How long have you been a special agent? How long have you been with the ATF?
It'll be 15 years in July.
Okay, and how long have you been a special agent?
Been a special agent for, it'll be approaching 11 years in July.
And what does special agent mean?
A special agent, so if it means we're a criminal investigator trained in investigating for the purposes of ATF, the crimes underneath the jurisdiction of ATF, but also we assist with other federal investigations and obviously state and local investigations for ATF, primarily involving the use of firearms.
And what is your educational background?
I have a degree from Oakland University in political science. I spent 1 year at law school at the Catholic University of America, and then obviously I was trained at the ATF National Academy for the requisite training to become an ATF agent.
Is part of your role in the ATF based? You're based in Michigan, Michigan.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any interaction with state investigations, and if so, what are they?
Yes, I've had many throughout my career. Right now I'm assigned to the Pontiac Gun Violence Task Force. It's a partnership between the Oakland County Sheriff's Office and the ATF. In that role, we investigate both state and federal firearms violations occurring within the city of Pontiac, primarily shootings.
And do you ever respond to or have anything to do with investigations that don't involve shootings?
Yes.
What kind of?
So generally, for whether it's the task force or just as an ATF agent, it's primarily the criminal possession and use of firearms.
So in other words, it doesn't have to be a shooting, it could just be a possession of
Sure,
firearms?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
About how many shooting investigations have you been a part of?
Hundreds at this point in my career.
And do you, as a part of in your role, have a general understanding of the laws associated with purchasing firearms, both in the state and federally, or just federally?
Both. Specific to this investigation, it would be both. Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what FFL stands for?
Yes. So an FFL is a federal firearms licensee. I think we heard testimony obviously in here before from Kami Beck. She was the employee from the gun store in Oxford, as we're referring to it. That would be a federally licensed gun store, which is the technical term for that is a federal firearms licensee.
And in order to become a licensee, what does that seller have to do or comply with?
So there's an application process that they have to go through with the ATF to become a federal firearms licensee.
And then are there guidelines or requirements they must follow?
Yes.
All right. We're going to get to that in a minute. Do you know James Crumbley?
I do.
And how did you come to know James Crumbley?
I became aware of who James Crumbley was the date of the shooting on November 30th, 2021, and I had contact with him inside of his residence during an execution of a search warrant that night.
Do you see him in the courtroom here today?
I do.
Can you describe something he's wearing?
He's wearing a white shirt, a blue tie, and headphones.
May the record reflect he's properly identified the defendant, Your Honor.
The record will reflect in-court identification of the defendant, James Crumbley.
Thank you. What, if anything, did you review in your role as officer in charge in this case?
A vast amount of information. So there would be the returns of 7 cell phones that were forensically extracted, social media returns, financial information, firearms records, including from the federal firearms licensee, and other documents and records, and surveillance video, obviously.
you were in the courtroom. Were you in the courtroom when Ed Wogrowski testified about forensic cell phone data?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury what software or program you used?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. The question is what Mr. Wogrowski used. I don't know that Agent Brandon knows that.
I corrected myself in that question purposely to say what you used. Are you aware of what was the investigation tool they used in cell phones?
What the ATF uses.
They both did. I'm trying to lay a foundation. Are you aware of, may I ask the questioner?
Go ahead.
Are you aware of that tool?
Yes, it was the same tool. So Detective Borowski used Cellbrite, put it in a readable format. When he spoke about a readable format, it's Cellbrite, and that's the format that I reviewed the forensic extractions in.
Okay, which is what I was trying to get at. You have experience. Do you have experience in this investigation reviewing the Cellbrite information, which is the cell phone data?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to draw your attention to November 30th of 2021 and ask you to first explain where you were when you heard about the shooting.
So I was in the ATF headquarters for the Detroit Field Division is in downtown Detroit. I was in an office that I shared at the time with my partner, and the assistant special agent in charge at the time came in. He knew I was from the Orient-Oxford area and let me know that there was a shooting at Oxford High School.
You currently are there, or you grew up there?
Both.
All right. What did you do?
I grabbed my bag and I ran out the door.
Did you go with anyone else? Was it discussed about what you were planning on doing? What the plan was? Who was going? Who wasn't going?
No, I just ran out the door and got to my car in the parking structure, turned on the lights and sirens, and then drove up I-75 in towards the direction of Oxford High School.
Do you typically work with a partner?
Yes,
Was he there that day?
he was.
Did you let him know you were going, or did he come with you?
At the beginning, at the time, no, I didn't let him know. He was stepped out for a minute, and I didn't even think about it. I was so focused on getting to the school.
Okay. About how long or does it take to get from Detroit to Oxford School?
It depends on traffic. It could be an hour. It could be more. It could be a little bit less, just depending on the time of day.
And did you have a familiarity with the area?
Yes.
Okay. What, if anything, did you know about that incident when you left?
All I knew when I left was that there was a shooting. As I drove northbound, I did receive information from our intelligence unit that there was a confirmed shooting. It was not a false alarm.
Okay. And what did you do as a result of that?
I continued to drive north on I-75, and at some point, I believe it was in Troy, met up with other law enforcement, forming like a caravan, like others have Detective Wogrowski testified to, traveling north on 75, and then getting to the exit at exit 81, where the old Palace of Auburn Hills used to be.
So the caravan, were there other people on the highway?
Yes.
Did this whole caravan, was it just law enforcement?
It was law enforcement. I believe at one point there was even a news truck trying to follow the caravan. I wasn't sure if they were aware, but I think they were just running parallel with the caravan.
And was it licensed sirens?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of rate of speed?
It was very fast, but it was as safe as we could be.
Okay. Can you tell the jury and describe what it was like driving up to Oxford School that day?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance.
Yeah, why is it relevant?
Because he's describing the scene and what he did and how he got into the school, and it was the scene of the shooting, and he was part of the investigation of the shooting.
Okay, so start there. So you arrive at the scene, you arrive at Oxford High School. Is that where you went first?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you describe the scene in terms of, was it easy to get there? Were there cars? Were there students?
So as we're getting to the school through obviously Lake Orion and Oxford, to travel through there, all the cars were parked on the right side of the road, and so it was almost like the left lane. There were no cars in it, and people knew what was going on at that point. It had seemed that word had spread because no one was moving. It wasn't just like you normally would get over and then get back over in the left lane. People were just parked on the road. As I got in towards the school, I started noticing that there was a large group of people at the Meyer, and obviously learned later that that was the reunification point. When I arrived at the school, there were a lot of law enforcement personnel. I can't even put a number on it. It was dozens, maybe 100 in the main vestibule area where like the front offices were located.
So, when you arrived, were there more than one law enforcement agency? Was there more than one represented?
Yes, there were quite a few.